everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted a more peace and kindness in your life, then do we have the Living a Life of Harmony show for you. Today I'll be talking with Darren Cockburn, meditation and mindfulness expert and the author of a brilliant book on finding more peace, living a life of harmony. And that's just what I want to talk with him about today, about 7 easy-to-practice guidelines for cultivating peace and kindness. That, plus we'll talk about shapeshifters and tigers, computer simulations, Eckhart Tolle's pain body, running and endorphins, the importance of karma yoga, and what in the world caffeine, potato chips, and ice cream, and the beach have to do with anything. So welcome to the show, Darren. Are you ready to shine?
I am indeed. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. So glad to have you here. And a mighty woohoo! Before we dive right into things, am I right that you had a blissful and completely unstressed childhood? That'd be a no.
That would be a no.
Tell me about your childhood.
Oh, it was a mixed childhood. I think like most people have. There were some very pleasurable moments that I can remember. Holidays and having fun at school. And there was also lots of points that were very stressful, and I suffered quite a bit from anxiety as a child. I didn't realize at the time, sometimes you have these conditions and don't realize that you've got them until later on. But yeah, it was a mixed bag for me, I think, like most people.
And then as we move into your 20s, what was life like? What was your anxiety like? How is the work-life balance going for you?
Yeah, when I got into my 20s and I started things like home and family and career, the stress levels and the anxiety definitely increased during that time. And that was when I needed to do something about what was going on inside my mind, because I had enough awareness to realize that my mind was extremely busy and stressed, and I needed to find some way of just having a more peaceful mind, a more balance in my life. I was doing far too much, juggling too many balls, and having a difficult time of it, really. So that was a point where I turned to meditation and later on other spiritual teachings to help me.
So what was your job you were doing at the time?
Oh, at the time I was working in IT.
Yeah.
I was an IT consultant and project manager working in a financial services sector. So it was a very stressful job. It didn't feel that stressful at the time, but when I look back on it, I now realize that I was highly stressed most of the time.
And you were doing what most people do, which is in the evenings, you were probably knocking back a drink or two to try to relax and de-stress yourself.
Yeah, that's right. Most evenings I would be drinking wine at some point or another. I was coming home from work, and then I was busy with family, and I was busy studying for a part-time master's degree. And I can remember by the end of the day, but my mind was absolutely frazzled. So then I would have a drink, to calm myself down before going to sleep. I later realized it was an addiction. Some people think that alcoholism is when people are drinking, a bottle of whiskey a day, and it can actually be much more subtle than that. It's amazing how many addictions we have that we're not aware of.
And what I found in working with people with alcohol is it's such a depressant, and it's so subtle that you don't realize. We tend to be an energetic match for what we put in our bodies, that we start to very slowly spiral down and down, darker and deeper, and not even realizing what's going on.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
How did you end up making that leap of faith to book a session with a life coach who then introduced you to meditation?
I can't remember now whether there was a specific trigger. I think it was just my awareness was just slowly building over time. And I just got to a point where I thought that I needed to do something, and I didn't know who to turn to, but I ended up turning to a life coach, and she was very helpful. She helped me gain some perspective on all the different things that I was involved with. And most importantly, she introduced me to meditation, and that's where the journey really began.
What was your first meditation center, or you describe a session? You describe one in the book that was the really profound, brief glimpse, but was really the carrot you needed on your path.
Yeah, that's right. I was actually waiting to go in for a coaching session. I was waiting outside in my car,
Yeah.
and I was trying the meditation that she'd recommended to me. And I noticed that my mind went into a very different space and a different level of consciousness to what I was used to. The mind was completely silent and peaceful, and it only lasted for a few seconds. And then I went straight back into thought again. But it was a very profound experience, and it was that that really motivated me to continue with meditation because I wanted more of that. It felt really good.
Beautiful. And then as we move forward, you got introduced to Eckhart Tolle. And Eckhart Tolle is interesting to me. When I first was introduced to Eckhart Tolle, I've got to be honest, between you and me, I hated it. I hated him. I couldn't resonate at all. Years later, after I'd been doing the work, I was like, this guy feels amazing. How did you get introduced? What were you learning from that?
I started with a book called The Power of Now, and I can remember reading that a number of times. And I couldn't quite understand it, but there was something behind the words. There was something that resonated me because I kept going back to it.
Mhm.
And later on, I got involved more with Buddhist teachings.
Yep.
And then after that, I went back to Eckhart Tolle's teachings, and that was when I connected with it more deeply. So it was similar to yourself, really, where when you first got involved with his teachings, they may not have resonated really strongly with you, but then you went off, did some work, learned some stuff, raised your level of consciousness, went back, and then you could understand more about what was going on, and then you had a very different experience, I guess.
Yeah, well, the
Yeah.
reading itself was very peaceful, and I enjoyed The Power of Now and later New Earth, and I loved reading his words, but his frequency, when you would watch a video, which is a lot more like this, or a lot more, for those who can't see on audio, like this turtle that I'm holding up here, if you're not vibrating at that deep frequency of the turtle or working to become that, and the turtle is not slow at all, the turtle beats the hare. But if you're not there, and if you're bouncing around much more like the hare, and you sit down and try to listen to Eckhart Tolle, it can be a complete discordance. And that's what I was
It's
running into.
Yeah, that's what happened to you. It was completely against where you was at the time, to the point where you might have thought, oh, this is too slow or too dull.
Exactly. So let's
Yeah.
go. You have evolved you have some beautiful techniques in your book, some beautiful ideas, and you have evolved what's called, well, I don't know that you can take credit for it, but you have become to understand and put it down in words, the process. What's the process?
The process is it's what we're a part of. It's everything, like a universal process. So it really represents all of form. So everything that we do is part of the process. Everything that happens to us and everyone else is part of the process. This is a big infinite. I believe it's infinite, that there's no beginning to it and there's no end to it. And within that big process, which stretches across the whole of the universe, there are lots of smaller processes. So if we take this video call that we're involved in now, that's an example of a process. If we take your life and your body and your mind, that's another process. Earlier, I went and made myself a cup of tea. That's a process. If we look at something that looks completely still, like this singing bowl,
Mm-hmm.
although it doesn't look like there's much going on with it down at an atomic level, there
It's
is a
singing.
process and things happening. It's singing. Yeah, even although it appears to be silent right now, it will be singing later. So that's a process as well. So there are all these processes happening at different levels, and they're all connected together. So the process that I'm following at the moment with my body and mind is very much connected with the process that you're following with your body and mind. And it's all joined up, and everything happens for a reason. It's cause and effect. So that's what I call the process, the universal process. And as I said, I don't believe that there's a beginning to it, and I don't believe that there's an end. I don't believe that there's like a wall or some kind of stop at either side. I think it just goes on infinitely. And I also think that it has an infinite depth to it as well. So you can look at a process at, say, the level of a planet or the Earth. That's a process. It's been created. It's going to be sustained for a number of years. And then ultimately, it will be destroyed. And it's the same with the human body. And it's the same with the singing bowl. And you go down further and look at an atomic level, and you can keep going down further and further into deeper levels of granularity, which is what scientists are doing, but they'll never actually reach the bottom because the depth to it is infinite, as well as the scope. What? So it's a really interesting thing to reflect on, how everything's just joined together, and there's this vast universal connectedness.
Infinite in all directions. What I like so much about your mind, Darren, and you remind me of Dr. Bradley Nelson, who created an amazing healing program called the Emotion Code, is with your IT mind, you have a way of helping us understand things by looking at systems, by looking at rules, by looking at guidelines and breaking things down. And I love that because it helps give us some order to the infinity. In fact, what are the guidelines?
Okay, so I'll just start by saying the process has intelligence behind it. So there are certain things that human beings can do which work within the process, and certain things that if humans don't do them, if they do the opposite, they're not going to work. And you can go back hundreds, thousands of years, and you can look at different religions and philosophies, and they'll all point to these basic principles. So I'll tell you what there are. Yeah. Because there are 7 of them. And what I've done is I've really synthesized different religious and philosophical lists, and also added my own insights to come up with this list of 7. Okay. So number 1, and we can talk in more detail after. I'll just go through the list, and maybe we can drill into 1 or 2 of them. So number 1 is to honor the body. Number 2 is to be present or mindful, bringing awareness and acceptance into every moment. Number 3 is to act with kindness to everyone and everything. Number 4 is to understand the truth, communicating it skillfully and selectively. Number 5 is to do only what needs to be done. Number 6 is obtain and retain only what you need. And then number 7 is to apply those other 6 guidelines to your digital device usage. Yeah. And that 7th one's very important because, many hours of our day now are spent digitally, like we're spending our time now. And we've got to learn to be just as conscious in our digital lives or digital practices and communication as we have in the physical world.
So let's talk. We're going to dive in briefly to each of these before we jump into a meditation here. I want to talk about honoring thy body, because this gets to yoga to me, which yoga is a practice to me of helping honor thy body to get yourself ready for meditation. And so oftentimes people say, "Oh, I'm focusing on the spiritual side of things," and their body is a wreck. What can you tell us about this?
Well, the body is the vehicle that we're given to take us, to guide us through the process. So it's important that we respect the body. So honoring the body is about looking after it and keeping it in good condition, making sure we get enough sleep, the right diets, exercise, relaxation, and all of those things. And it's just as importantly about the relationship that we have with our body. So regardless of what condition the body's in now, it's about having a good relationship with it, so we're kind and we're accepting and we're respectful of our own body. And when we have that good relationship with our body, even if the condition's not great, we find that our mind becomes more peaceful. So it's partly about, keeping the body in good condition, and then it's partly about the relationship with it. And this is a great guideline, because if we can get this one working well, it helps the other 6. Helps us to practice the other 6.
A lot of these guidelines have to do with relationships. And so this one, in essence, you're saying, become a best friend with your body. Look in the mirror, even if you're not happy with where you're at, and say, I love you. Thank you, vehicle. Thank you, body. Let's see what we can do to have an amazing day together, body.
Yeah. It's like talking to your body in the same way that you talk to a good friend. I don't know about you, but I don't talk to myself as skillfully and as kindly as I do my friends. So it's about being really, really kind to yourself with your inner dialogue, and kind to your body.
Thank you. Which brings us to the next one. Be present, bringing awareness and acceptance into every moment. So we're doing that for our body. Now we're doing that for everything. In fact, what are the 2 modes of the mind?
The 2 modes of the mind are when we're either present or mindful, or when we're lost in thought. So hopefully at the moment, the 2 of us are mindful. So we're aware, we're accepting of our experience, we're in the present moment. And we know that when we're in that mode, we're going to be skillful and our mind's going to be peaceful. So that's the mode that we're aiming towards. The other mode of the mind is when we're lost in thought. So this is when the mind wanders off, like into a dream, and it's either fantasizing about something, or worrying about something, or creating stories for us to believe in that may not be true. So it's when the mind kind of spins off egoically, out of control. And I know when I look at my own experience every day, I have times when I'm present, like I am now, and then I have other times when I become lost in thought. And even on this call, I would guess that most of the time I'll be present, but occasionally my mind will probably wander off, and then I'll go into autopilot, and then I'll be lost in thought, and then I'll come back again. So it's a little bit like dreaming, being lost in thought. In the same way that you dream maybe at night, when you go to sleep and you have a dream, you do the same in the day, and you're physically awake, but the mind's dreaming, and the awareness temporarily disappears, and then you come back again. So we're always kind of flip-flopping between these 2 modes of the mind, unless we're enlightened, of course, which I know I'm not. But if I was enlightened, I would be continuously present right the way through the day, and also continuously present whilst I sleep. Because all this stuff, these guidelines, they drift into your dream life, or your dream world, as well as while you're awake. So you start practicing the guidelines. What you find is you start following them whilst you're dreaming, whilst you're asleep. And that's when you know that you're doing well.
Brilliant. In fact, you have a whole section on dreaming. And I actually had a dream about going to meditate in my dream. And I was bookmarking that in my dream, going, oh my God, I'm in a dream and I'm working on my meditation in a dream. I've heard about this. and then I woke up. So
that's wonderful. That's the first time I've heard anyone say that. That's one. So he's actually meditating in your dream.
So I was working on it. I can't say that I had gotten very far. We had a guest on about 3 years ago who talked about, it was a Buddhist version of lucid dreaming, and how you can improve the depth of your meditation practice by learning how to wake up in your dream and then drop into the silence within your dream.
Yeah. It's like if you know that you're dreaming within a dream, that would be good, wouldn't it?
It would be, yeah. So let's go from there. I want to stay on this awareness for a second, because if you as a guest had gone into autopilot, then my job is to do what I call putting a monkey in the wheel. Sorry, monkey. Which is to bring you back. I had I took a sales, whatever, had a sales manager like several decades ago. And he was doing collections, helping people collect their money from businesses. And if somebody went into autopilot, he would keep going with his speech, and we go, well, if the customer won't pay you, then we take them out back. First, we break their kneecaps, and then we're going to shoot them. And at some point, the person who's listening on the other end goes, oh, wait, what were you talking about? And he's got him again. How do we catch our mind when it's running off and throw that monkey in the wheel?
Well, it happens for one of two reasons. Either our conditions change and then we naturally snap out of it. So let's say, for example, that we was driving along and we was lost in thought and there was a hazard or another car pulled out in front of us. That might be enough to shock us.
Yeah.
And then wake us back up again. Or someone else could do that, or any kind of situation can trigger the mindfulness to come back. Or the other way that it comes back is that when we're lost in thought, eventually it just burns itself out naturally. And then let me explain it in another way. It's like if you're having a dream when you're asleep. You can either be woken by an alarm clock, or you can wake up naturally. And it's the same when you're coming out of being lost in thought when you're awake. You can either get triggered to wake up, or it just happens naturally because your thoughts just burn and fizzle themselves out over time. But I think you'll know from experience that can sometimes take a long time. We can be like several minutes, or sometimes it feels like we're hours that we're lost in our own thoughts, and then we come back. But it's nice when we come back, and when we're mindful, it's always good to give ourselves a pat on the back and to be happy about that, rather than give ourselves a kick in because we've been lost in thought. So it's always good to say to yourself in a very kind, positive way, that's wonderful. I'm aware again now. I'm back in the present moment. And one of the things for me that is an indicator that I'm back in the present moment, and everyone, I'm sure, will have different indicators, but for me, it's the breath. Because the breath comes back. And as soon as I notice the breath, I go, okay, we're back again. And linking back to what you were saying earlier about the yoga, I think one of the jobs of a good yoga teacher is to guide people so they're aware or present right the way through the yoga class. And guiding people to bring awareness to their breath and sensations in the body is a wonderful way of doing that.
Beautiful. And this really gets at the third point here, which is we're talking about whether it's the yoga teacher or whether it's the teacher of our mind. Acting with kindness, considering everyone and everything. I'm going to add to it, beginning with ourselves.
Wonderful.
What can you tell us about acting with kindness and considering everyone and everything?
Well, the previous guideline that we talked about, being present, being mindful, kindness naturally flows out of that because kindness needs some kind of connection. So to be kind to yourself, you need to be connected with yourself.
Yeah.
And to be kind to someone else, if you're being considerate, friendly, generous to other people, there has to be a connection there with them. And when we get lost in thought, that connection's not there. The connection's kind of temporarily broken down. So when we're mindful and we're aware, the connection's there. And then if we're open, and I believe if we're open to an intelligence or wisdom or love that transcends us, that's what then flows through us and allows us to be kind both to ourselves and other people and other things. Because kindness is about kindness to, it could be animals, insects, plants, and even your own home. If your home's dirty, then cleaning it is being kind to your home. Or if there's a table and it's dusty, giving it a wipe and making it look pleasant is being kind to the table. So this is not just about people. I think this is about everything. The way that we might shut a cupboard door, or the way that we might place our keys down. onto the desk. All of these things relate to kindness.
Well, when you say the process is infinite in all directions, then while being kind and loving, because I don't want people to freak out about what I'm about to say, if it's infinite in all directions, then everything matters, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. So we consider everything when we're connected. It allows us to consider everything, and it allows us to prioritize, because we don't have the time and the energy to be kind to everyone and everything. Of course we don't. But when we're connected, that connection or that wisdom or that love allows us to prioritize and focus our energy wherever we need to focus it to play our part in enabling this process to evolve, because that's what the process is doing. Um, and it doesn't evolve in a straight line like that. It kind of goes like that, a little bit like a good investment in the stock market.
Yes.
It kind of wiggles around a little bit. But over the years, if you look back, decades, centuries, thousands of years, we can see that things are evolving. And that's what the process is doing. And that's what we're all responsible for, playing our part. And being kind to ourselves and other people is part of that evolution.
Beautiful. Let's talk about the next one. Understanding the truth, communicating it selectively and skillfully. What can you tell us about the importance of avoiding excessive, harmful, and false communication?
Yeah, so I don't know whether you've experienced this before, but quite often we get deluded about things.
Mhm. Me
So
never.
when we get lost in thought, uh, what often happens is that our minds will create these stories and these beliefs and these facts
Mhm.
without really having the evidence for them. So our minds become deluded. And when we're deluded, it takes us out of alignment with the process. So we think that the process is different to how it actually is. And that's the delusion. And that's where untruthfulness starts from. It starts from when we're lost in thought. And from that state of delusion
Mhm.
comes resistance, because we believe that the process is different to how it actually is. And then from the resistance comes unskillfulness, which could be more unskillful thoughts, or it could be unskillful communication, or it could be unskillful physical action. So what I'm encouraging people to do with this guideline is to understand the truth. And I like the way that Patanjali described this in the Yoga Sutras.
Mhm.
And I think he was talking more about spiritual teachings, but I think you can apply this to anything in life. If you want to understand whether something's the truth, you've either got to directly evidence it, so directly observe it yourself, then you'll know it's the truth, or you've got to infer it. So, for example, if you look out of your window and there's rain coming down and there's puddles outside, then you can, okay, it's raining. Or the third thing is that you can go to a trusted source. So that may be a religious or philosophical book. It could be a teacher. It could even be a specialist that you trust in a particular area. Let's say that you have a problem with your chain on your bike, and you go to the bike shop, and there's a bike repair guy there that you see regularly and you trust, and he says you need a new chain. Then you could then assume that the truth is that you need a new chain. So they're the three ways that you can do it: directly evidencing, inferring, or through a trusted source. So I like this particular model, and I use this sometimes to challenge my own beliefs about things, whether it's beliefs about myself, other people, or situations, and to be okay with not knowing.
Yeah.
And sometimes you say, well, the truth at the moment is I don't know. I might have this assumption or this opinion, but I don't know whether this is actually real. And I think we should keep this in mind, when we're looking at the news and the media, because it can be so easy to believe what's presented to you when actually it's not always true.
Thank you. So let's go to the next two. I'm not going to combine them, but they are very similar, and I really like them. So the next one is do only what needs to be done. And maybe you can tell us the importance of letting go of some activities in your life, and with consideration and kindness, of course.
Sure. Yeah. Well, not everyone, but most people do far more than they need to, and they complain about being too busy. So what I'm encouraging people with this guideline is to look at the activities that they're involved in and let go of the stuff that they don't really need to do. And sometimes it's obvious, or sometimes you can have a look at your life and say, what are the activities that I'm involved in which are hindering me, which are causing me stress, which are causing me unhappiness? And most people, if they look long and hard at what they do each day, each week, they'll be able to find things that they can let go of. And if we look at the next guideline, which is about obtaining and retaining only what you need, you mentioned combining them. There is a close connection there, because often people are doing so much because they're trying to obtain more than they need. So if you're trying to get more stuff than you actually need, it means that you have to be involved in more activity to acquire it, maybe earning money or going and getting things or maintaining things. So behind these two guidelines is a call for more simplicity, for people to have less, to have just what they need and do only what they need to do. But the flip side to this, the positive flip side, is these guidelines are also encouraging people to do the things they need to do and get the things that they need. Because people run into problems sometimes when there is something that they need to be doing, but they're not actually doing it. Or there is something that they need, but they're not going and getting it. So can you see that there's two sides to it?
Well, I was using this morning because while finishing up your book this morning, we have a big road trip coming this weekend. We have a beautiful electric car, and we're excited for the road trip, but it has studded snow tires on, and the snow has just melted and will wear down the snow tires on this long drive. Now, normally with me, I could be digging into tires, and do I get spare wheels, and what's the tire size, and the wheel size, and the offset, and on and on and on and on and on it goes. And I said, I'm not going to do that this time. I only need what I need. I do need new tires, and I do need new tires now. I can't run the studs on the dry roads for the summertime. What can I do to do only what I need, to get only what I need, and to do it with total and complete flow? And it fit together like that, to where I'm walking around this morning going, I ordered tires already. I ordered tires already. Not only did I order tires, but the right tire at the right price with the right everything appeared, because I didn't try to force it, push it, or get into I call it the disease of more. I want more of this, more of that, more of the other. Has to be this perfect, blah, 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 blah. Instead, without realizing it, I followed your guidelines. And it was beautiful. Tires. We're going to go
and
into... Go for
it. Does that feel good?
It feels... And one of the ways that I look at things is, does it feel light or does it feel heavy?
Yeah.
This feels incredibly light. No efforting, no extra. In fact, I was going to get 2 sets of wheels to make it easier to change for summer and winter. I didn't, which is actually less resources on the environment. I could get 2 different sets of tires, front and rear, which looks cooler, maybe gives it better handling, but the tires will wear out faster. That also felt heavier. Going with lightness was the only way I can describe it, is woohoo!
Yeah, following the guidelines usually often does feel light, and it often feels very positive as well. So you know that you're on the right track. It actually feels good in the body. That's what I noticed. If I follow the guidelines, my body feels better.
So let's go from the guidelines and go to the last guideline here, which is applying the guidelines to your digital device usage. And I want to talk about a couple key things here. One is, you say there's more energy flowing during real human contact.
Well, it's the difference between digital contact and real human contact. And we're all going to experience plenty of digital contact in our lives. What's happening is that the digital contact is increasing and human contact is decreasing. more so for the younger generation.
Mm-hmm.
And the point that I make in my book is when you're actually with someone physically in person,
Mm-hmm.
it's, in my opinion, it's a much richer experience. And I think it's easier then to appreciate the connectedness between people. So one of the tips or the principles of the seventh guideline, which is to apply the guidelines to our digital usage, is to ensure that we have enough time for real physical human contact. That doesn't necessarily mean touch or intimacy. It may mean just spending time with people and being in a space of other people. It might not even mean talking to them, but just being around people and enjoying that physical connectivity that we have with each other.
Beautiful. On that note, what's karma yoga?
Oh, karma yoga is when we're practicing something, when we're being mindful, when we're being present, or we're doing some work,
Mm-hmm.
when we're mindful and present, but we're not doing it for a particular outcome. We're not doing it for selfish reasons. It's more of an altruistic thing. And anytime that we're doing that, an activity where it's not for ourselves, it's for other people, or it's for something external to us, and we're present and mindful when we're doing it, that's karma yoga.
And I believe if we follow these guidelines, which on the surface are for, I'm going to put this in quotes, selfish reasons, meaning to make us feel better, we help make it selfless too. We help make everybody better in the process, don't we?
Yeah, that's right. I think with the connection and what I talked about with the process, if you're following the guidelines, even if you're just following them for yourself and you start off doing it for selfish reasons, you will indirectly be helping other people, and that makes it easier for us then to appreciate this connectivity and this big process that we're a part of. The more times that we can all be reminded that we're not separate from each other and that we're actually one and that we're connected, then that's the better, yeah.
Woohoo! What would you say are your top 3 tips to create a life of harmony?
Okay, well I would definitely go with I'd go with the top 2 guidelines and the final one. So I'd say honor the body for the reasons that we talked about at the beginning, because it makes life much easier if you've got a good relationship with your body and if you keep it in good condition. I would say work on your mindfulness and have a mindfulness practice. I call that the king of the guidelines, because when you're mindful or when you're present, you follow all the other guidelines automatically, because skillfulness comes out of the present moment and
Is there a,
creativity and wisdom.
is there a basic practice you'd have us start with?
Well, meditation is always a helpful practice for mindfulness, or simply just keeping some awareness on the breath or sensations in the body. I have a website with lots of free resources called Mindfulness Online Training. And do you mind if I share the
Please do.
URL for that?
Please
Yeah,
do.
it's www.mindfulnessonlinetraining.org. And that takes you from the ground up with mindfulness definition and benefits and techniques. And there's also meditations on there and videos and a podcast that you could subscribe to. So I'd recommend people do that. And the third tip is to focus on the seventh guideline, which is applying the guidelines to your digital device usage, because we all have usually hours of experience of digital devices each day. So making more of an effort there and using devices consciously is going to be key, and is going to continue to be important as the digital usage increases over time.
Beautiful. Couple last questions. We'll dive into a meditation. First off, my wife, Jessica, the producer, always wants me to ask a question for parents and their kids. Any guidelines you give there?
Well, people often ask me this question when I do mindfulness training or mindfulness teaching. How can I help my children be more mindful? And I think the best thing that you can do for your children is set them a good example. And yeah, stay mindful and work on your own practice. And I think the right advice and guidance will come out of that.
Beautiful. What personally brings you the greatest happiness, or what I call the woohoo woo factor?
It's the peace and the love that I find in my own awareness or consciousness, which I can experience when I'm present and, like in communication like this. And I also experience it quite a bit in meditation. And that for me is the number one experience and the thing that provides me with the most satisfaction and peace. And there's a happiness, a joy to it. Yeah.
Beautiful. So any last words of wisdom you want to share, Darren, before we jump into maybe about a 5-minute meditation?
If you like what you've heard, go and have a look at the website that I mentioned, or get yourself a copy of this book.
I'll match you there.
Living a Life of Harmony, 7 Guidelines to Cultivate Peace and Kindness.
Beautiful, beautiful. And if you didn't catch the URL, which we will repeat here one more time, mindfulnessonlinetrading.org. Come on over to inspirenationshow.com and we'll get you over to www.mindfulnessonlinetraining.org. This has been beautiful, Darren. Do you have time for about a 5-minute meditation here?
That would be good.
All right. So people, if you're driving down the road, do this when you get parked or you're at home.
Good advice. Okay, if you're comfortable doing so and it's safe to do so, just gently close your eyes. And guide your awareness to the sensations within the body. You may feel sensations that are pleasant and enjoyable. There may be bodily sensations that are a little unpleasant or neutral. And simply observing what the body's doing. Noticing any movements the body's making. You may feel the air against your skin. And the peacefulness of your own breath. Accepting and surrendering to whatever comes into your awareness. Observing your body with kindness. Being grateful for all that your body has done for you. and how it continues to serve you in whatever shape or form it's in right now. And wishing the body well. Saying to yourself, may my body be well and healthy. And in your own time, gently opening your eyes and coming back into the environment wherever you are.
Thank you so much, Darren. Woohoo!
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a real pleasure having you on. Keep up the amazing work. I love your energy. I love what you're doing. I love your book. And wow, you're on a special path to helping others. So thank you so much for the work you're doing in the world, Darren.
Thank you. Take care.
You too. So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get living a life of harmony, and begin cultivating more peace and harmony in your life today. And shine bright. Woohoo! Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!